Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. So the Xbox E3 conference was today, and so far I feel like Microsoft was definitely a great deal more interesting to watch than EA's, and I feel that mostly spawned from the general lack of sports games, whereas EA spent the majority of their conference shoving EA Sports down everyone's throats. I feel like Microsoft, while still making use of their new favorite buzzword 4K about 1.5 million times, was a great deal more respectful of everyone's time. They showcased a great deal of video games that were rather interesting once we got past the Forza nonsense and the unveiling of the new Porsche 911, which they decided to have at a gaming convention of all things. And for the sake of respecting your time, I will try to be as succinct as possible as we go through this, and I will mainly be focusing on the games I either had an exceptional issue with or that I'm looking forward to in some way, and I will also be leaving out the games that have already been released on PC. They did announce that Project Scorpio has been named the Xbox One X, and in addition to having an absolutely ludicrous name, will be retailing in the US for $500. However, it was notable that they did not discuss the performance of the new Xbox very much, and instead chose to focus on aspects of the console that no one will really care about, like the number of nanometers the CPU die is, and how it's the smallest Xbox ever. And no information about performance, no information about whether or not they will be making use of SSDs, or if they're relying on the far cheaper and slower 5400 RPM mechanical hard drives like every other console in existence that has ever used as a hard drive ever. It was a disappointing unveiling to say the least, and while yes, it will be significantly more powerful than the PS4 Pro, it seemed that Microsoft focused on the wrong things, which gives me severe pause about wanting to own one of them. The new Metro Exodus game, however, looks to be quite good. The playstyle and the environment definitely lent itself to something in between Doom and Fallout. Unfortunately, it will not be coming out until 2018. Now, I haven't had much of a chance to play any Metro games in the past, but this one seems to be very interesting. There wasn't any indication of what the story will be about, but I'm sure we'll get more details in that regard either later this year or early 2018, depending on the launch date. Next, they had Assassin's Creed Origins, and to be honest, these games lost their luster with me long ago. This newest Assassin's Creed game, set in ancient Egypt, showed a loot system, skill tree progression, and it seems to be getting more into the mythical side of things. However, making use of the hawk for vision and several of the other animations seem to have been borrowed directly from other games, like Far Cry Primal. With the inclusion of a loot system, I would expect this game to have microtransactions firmly in place by the time it launches. And after a fair amount of games that have already come out on PC, or that I just had no interest in whatsoever, we also had Sea of Thieves, which in actuality is now one of my more anticipated games. A pirate game with team-focused objectives, combat, and exploration, this game looks to be a ton of fun. And as soon as I saw that you could launch yourself to an enemy ship by making use of a cannon, I was instantly sold. Then we had Crackdown 3, which makes use of those cel-shader style graphics, but it still looks like a fantastic amount of mayhem with what I'm guessing seems to be 4-player co-op. The game introduction was light on most everything except explosions and hailstorms of gunfire, which is exactly what I would want from a Crackdown game. Also shown were Ashen and Life is Strange Before the Storm. Life is Strange Before the Storm is a prequel, and Ashen we actually already knew was coming. Both of those seem to be extremely interesting, but not a whole lot was given out there. Two smaller games, indeed, that I will most certainly be picking up, but following right on their heels was the new Middle-earth Shadow of War. This game promises a more in-depth and refined Nemesis system, along with a plethora of other additional features, including a more RPG-style game, while still making use of that same old Batman Arkham-style combat that I loathed so much. Regardless, the game looks absolutely fantastic, and most likely at least a bit of a lighter tone to the game, whereas the first game was far more grim and dark. This game actually showed signs of a sense of humor.
Bright Lord, Dark Lord, same thing really. End result's me ripping spines out, which I like to do anyway, so either way's a win.
A fine addition to our army.
Name's Bruce. From here on out, I will be your shadow. No one gets to you without my say-so.
Don't worry about my enemies. They will all follow eventually.
You want to plant your flag in Mordor, you'll need to do it deep. There's a fortress nearby. They say it's ruled by a two-headed troll big as a mountain and deadly smart. Which, well, I guess he'd have to be given the two heads. You take him down, you'll send a message to Sauron and get yourself some nice new digs as part of the bargain.
I'm not going to do this alone. Gather your troops.
Will do. Ooh, just make sure you let me pop his heads off, won't ya?
Now, following on the heels of that was a spectacle that absolutely had me on the edge of my seat, and that was, of course, Ori and the Will of the Wisps. And let me just say that this game seems to be every bit as visually stunning and spectacular as the first game. Every frame in the trailer was like a mosaic of a masterpiece painting. Underscoring just how incredible Ori and the Blind Forest was, Ori and the Will of the Wisps is promising to be no less amazing. If you ever encounter anyone who would dare argue against video games being a form of art, I would point them to Ori and the Blind Forest. That right there, in my mind, would be enough to render their arguments to be invalid. Lastly, we finally got more information on BioWare's new IP, Anthem, and right away the first thing I of course noticed was that this is clearly where the facial animators at BioWare went. They weren't working on Andromeda, they were working on this game. The game itself looks solid, and the graphics, of course, in the Frostbite engine look spectacular. Anthem appears to be a massive open-world multiplayer environment that seems to be trying very hard to be Destiny. It also includes what appears to be randomized loot crates, so you can bet your backside there will most certainly be microtransactions within this game as well. There isn't much detail on the story, which traditionally has been the cornerstone and hallmark of a BioWare game, which I am as yet unsure whether this is because they just won't go into the story quite yet, or if this is yet more of a departure from the BioWare of old. I suppose only time will tell. Overall, I thought there was a decent amount of information during the Microsoft conference, even if we did have to suffer through their using the term 4K at least twice in every sentence. But let me know what you think. Am I off the mark with these games, or do you share my thoughts? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, the march towards that silver sub button continues. Please help it along by remembering to like and share this video, and if you're new to the channel, then don't forget to subscribe in order to stay up to date in the latest in PC gaming news and reviews. Links to my Patreon, Steam Curator page, and social media are in the description below. Please feel free to avail yourself of them if you so choose. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha, and I'll see you next time.